figure Steve, Chris, and I, our flight back is at like 4 in the afternoon.
Oh,
Okay. So clip that to yourself, and I can hover it and throw my mic there.
Okay, Mike, you ready? Is John ready? Yeah, I just got it. All right, hello everybody. Thank you for coming to the next paper session. My name is Wayne Foster from the CERN at the Space Center. I'll be moderating today. We're going to start off with a paper from Mike Smail from the Adler Planetarium.
All right. Check 1, 2, test, test. Everybody hear me okay? Excellent. Stream audio going through? Probably. Awesome. Welcome. Yes, as Wayne said, my name is Mike Smail. I'm the Director of Theaters and Digital Experience at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. And today we will be talking about the planet that shall not be named. And just to make sure we're all absolutely clear and we know exactly what we're talking about, we're going to be talking about Uranus. So, without further ado, I'd like to start by asking each of you to think for just a moment about the last time you discussed our solar system's 7th planet with an audience in your planetarium. How many of you, quick show of hands, how many of you have talked about Uranus with a public audience in the last month? Okay, about 8 people, more than I thought. Last year? Okay, even more. How many of you have never talked about Uranus with a public audience? I don't fault you at all. For example, when I give star talks, I like to focus on things that are bright, things that are easily visible, things that we can encourage people to go outside and see in the night sky, especially in a light-polluted city like Chicago. And skirting the edge of naked eye visibility, Uranus doesn't really fit into that category. Couple it with the embarrassing pronunciation, and it's no surprise we often omit that planet from our discussions. But by doing so, what are we missing? What are we leaving out? I believe it was the philosopher Jonathan Meyer who opined that Uranus is a wonderland of mysterious phenomena. In 2012, the result of the Planetary Science and Astrobiology Decadal Survey were released. A mission to Uranus finished 3rd, behind a couple of missions you might have heard of, Perseverance and the Europa Clipper. In April of this year, the results of the next decadal survey were released. This survey, if you're not familiar with it, it recommends scientific missions and targets for NASA, NSF, a variety of funding organizations and government agencies for the next decade, so from 2023 to 2032. The highest priority for a flagship mission in the decadal was given to a Uranus orbiter and probe. This craft would launch in 2031, reach Uranus in 2044, and spend the rest of that decade traversing Uranus and the remainder of the Uranian system. It would fly by the major moons, a variety of flight paths, and launch a probe deep into Uranus's atmosphere. Think. All right, I forgot to start the timer, but we made it like 2 minutes in, right? Pretty good. The important thing to think about here is basically think of the Cassini mission, but for Uranus. Speaking of the Cassini mission, here's a photo that Cassini took. See that pale blue dot? That's not here. That's Uranus. All right, so what's so cool about Uranus? Why is it so important that we probe this distant icy world? Well, as it turns out, there's an awful lot we don't know about Uranus. Uranus and Neptune, both ice giants. Hopefully we all know that. The only class of planet that we haven't studied closely with a spacecraft. Also, most of the exoplanets that we've discovered are ice giant sized. So it's incredibly valuable for us to take advantage of these closer to home worlds to learn more about structure and context and learn more about their composition. And one of the largest goals for the Uranus Orbiter and Probe, or the UOP, is to attempt to determine where in the solar nebula Uranus formed and when. Now, we know that the planets where they are now is not where they have always been. They have shifted. It's possible, well, basically, getting a detailed survey of the composition, the physical composition of the planet may help to confirm current theories about planetary migration and positioning, like the Nice model, which is what this is, or it may release brand new information and wrinkles that we had no way of knowing about. Now, compared to the other planets, Uranus appears to have much less internal heat. Some have suggested that a colliding body could have stripped away much of the planet's heat early in its existence, and that collision may also be responsible for the planet's extreme axial tilt, which, actually, does anybody know the axial tilt, how much Uranus is tilted over? I heard somebody say it. It's about 98 degrees. Now, other scientists have suggested that maybe the planet does actually have a normal amount of heat, and that heat is simply trapped. There may be some sort of atmospheric barrier to that heat transfer, so it may be in there, but it may not be getting out. And when we look at Uranus, there's not, again, it's far away. We don't have the best images. We don't see a lot of atmospheric and cloud detail. This is maybe one of the better looks we've had at the planet's atmosphere. But the nice thing about the UOP, the orbiter and probe, it'll help us to map and get a better idea of the atmospheric structure of Uranus, as well as the internal thermal circulation present in that world. Uranus has a magnetic field. You may have known this. It is also completely bonkers. So it doesn't originate at the core of the planet. It's offset. It's also elevated a little bit. And the magnetic field is tilted by about 60 degrees. That's on top of the 98-degree tilt of the planet itself. What this means is that once every Uranian day, which is about 17 hours, the magnetic field aligns in such a way that solar wind is allowed to penetrate the magnetosphere and irradiate the planet itself. And then after a period of time, the magnetosphere continues rotating back. It sort of closes that and begins to deflect particles like all good magnetospheres should. Now, being able to measure that magnetosphere, those magnetic fields, the processes that produce it, auroral emissions, which you find aurora on Uranus as well, all of those are on the list to be studied by the Uranus orbiter and probe. Uranus has rings. Probably all know this as well. It has a very interesting series of rings. So these are just the closest ones. There are, very close to the planet, there are 9 very, very dense, very thin rings. And then there are 2 hazy rings in there as well. There are also 2 rings that were discovered about 20 years ago by Hubble. They're a little bit further out. So we have this really tight system of rings, and then over a dozen small moons, again, all in close proximity to Uranus. Now, over time, these closest ring particles should have drifted away. They should have sort of thinned out. And they're not, though. They're still there. Now, if you look carefully, those of you in the back are probably out of luck, but if you look down here, Cordelia and Ophelia, 2 of Uranus's moons, if you look, you'll notice they are on either side of this sort of outermost ring here. Those are shepherd moons. They keep that ring in place. We know that one. All the rest of them, no idea yet. Also, the proximity of all these moons mean that over the history of our solar system, there has probably been a number of collisions and impacts. So the ability to look at this potentially dynamic young world up close will help us basically answer those questions about what processes formed these rings, what are keeping them in place, what accounted for all these minor moons that we see here. Uranus also has a number of larger moons. Again, the only regular satellite system we have not intensely studied with a spacecraft. And the UOP will help us determine also whether habitable environments might exist in Uranus's moons. So given our current understanding of the potential for astrobiological discoveries on icy worlds, think about places like Europa and Enceladus, 2 of Uranus's moons in particular, Ariel and Miranda, become very interesting targets for further exploration. Ariel's internal composition is about 50% water, 50% solid material, probably rock, we're not entirely sure. Whereas Miranda is over 60% water and may have a significant amount of water ice on its surface. Speaking of the surfaces, both worlds show incredible thermal cryovolcanic activity and extensive reshaping over the course of their existence. Remember Uranus's odd magnetic field? The constantly changing, the variation in that field mean that we can also peer into the interiors of these planets and learn a great deal about the depth, thickness of these and the other moons' interiors, including the possibilities for the existence of subsurface oceans. Finally, here's just a quick look at the suite of imagers and instruments that will be on board, a variety of cameras, invisible and IR, tracking spectroscopy, all that good stuff. The craft, it'll launch, it's designed to launch on a Falcon Heavy, and it will return over 50 gigabytes of data about Uranus. Hopefully in the next 10 years, they'll also make a better 3D model of it, because it's, I mean, it's early. All right, well, this has been a quick overview of the scientific goals and the potential new discoveries to come from the Uranus orbiter and probe. I don't know all about you, but I, for one, am looking forward to learning more about this at GLPA 2045. So thank you very much for your attention.
Can I volunteer? The word in Greek is pronounced uranos. The accent is on the third syllable, if you ever need that.
It's good to know there are a variety, and we encourage people to use whatever pronunciations they're comfortable with.
Right. I'm just saying that's how it's pronounced in Greek, which means sky in Greek. The word means sky.
I
And the
did not know
colors,
that.
It was a bonus, it was an accident.
Perfect match. Yeah. Excellent. All right. I think we have some time. Are there any questions about Uranus? Yes.
So this is kind of a strange question, I guess. So I have
Did you just see the talk? It was-
I have a lot of friends in my life who have been showing me on media, oh, NASA wants us to name the probe. Here are all these names. One, is that true at all?
So yeah, there was a recent thing, because again, with the mission getting approved back in April, there was some stuff that circulated about you can name the probe to Uranus, and that was done by a third party. It was not like an officially sanctioned thing, but it was something that popped and of course spread like wildfire, because secretly everybody really loves talking about Uranus. So yeah, a thing, but not an like legit sanctioned official thing. So all right. Oh, and I'm sorry, I was supposed to repeat the question. That question was the recent social media content about naming the probe to Uranus legitimate? Okay, I saw one more hand shoot up somewhere. Ryan. Is it funded? Is this mission funded? So not yet. So this is the list of, basically the priority list. And so the next steps will be looking, there are also several decadal surveys, not just like the astrobiology and the planetarium. So the next steps will be looking, like part of the proposal plan, and I actually almost included a QR code to link to the actual bid, but I can share that with you. So it does have funding structure and stuff built out, but now basically this is the time to look at funding and determine how they're going to make that work, if they're going to make it work as is, if they're going to recommend any changes, things of that nature. But again, it's a solid. Again, it was proposed in 2012 originally, narrowly missed being funded, made some tweaks, proposed it again. So it seems like a pretty good bet that it is going to happen. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much.
We're going to talk a little bit about the museum and the Kellogg Observatory and some of the things that we do over there. And oh, this one, yeah, this one's for the other one, yeah, right, okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Kellogg Observatory and what we do there and some of the other things going on at the museum. So this is the observatory back in 1930 when it was first built, and that is the Lundin telescope that is still there. That is it in 1930. And if anybody's coming on the field trip on Saturday, you're going to get to see it, and it'll look very nice to you. So it's been used for public education ever since. We did have to close the observatory down in 1999 just because it was made originally of wood, so the structure had to be repaired. We're also able to do other programs. So these are our telescopes. So again, this is now the Ernst E. Both telescope, named for our former director and curator of astronomy. We reopened in 2018, and just so you get some basic stats on it, it is do the math, it is an F-15. So it's not the widest field of view, but it does give some good views. And yes, we have been able to view Uranus or Uranus through many public nights. We also have the Theodore Bastani and a Lund hydrogen alpha on a dual saddle mount. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Both those telescopes are F7s, and I wondered why Holly fell in love with it so much, but it's because it's got a really nice field of view, and it has a really nice star field in it. Both of them do with H alpha with the sun. The Peter Taylor telescope is our newest addition. It is a Schmidt-Cassegrain, which we have not had until just this past summer. So it's a wonderful one to have. We have one here at Buff State too, and I was more than happy to take that donation in when I got that call, like, oh yes, a Schmidt-Cassegrain, no problem. So we have a lot of fun with that. We do a lot of work in partnership with the Buffalo Astronomical Association. They are our largest public astronomy club in Buffalo. And we teamed up with them to do a looking up virtual star party during the pandemic. So we did a lot of work. Holly did a lot of work herself as an MC on that, and I did a lot of presentations for the public. And we had gotten a lot of visitors from around the world too. It was on Facebook Live, and one night it was stunning to see that we actually had somebody from South America just wanting to check out a different part of the sky, which I thought was kind of strange because that's what I say when I want to see South America skies. I never think of my sky as the other sky. It's not something I do. So the BAA is what they're called, and they've been with us all year long, done many wonderful programs. This one is a more recent photo, which we're going to talk about shortly in a moment. And yes, that was my back. Whatever. But we also have an Eclipse consortium. As you may or may not know, the Eclipse of 2024 is coming right through Buffalo, New York. First touches the shores right across the street from our very own Tift Nature Preserve. And we're setting up all sorts of events all across Western New York. Our goal is really to just get people to stick around. As you know what it's like when an eclipse happens. If you've been to one, everybody comes in slowly to their site, to the eclipse. They see it, the eclipse happens, and they get out, and now you got a traffic mess, right? So we're trying to do things to keep them stuck in place a little bit. So this is a little bit about that consortium. We've been planning since 2015. So it's not like we haven't known about it. And I've known about it since about 2000, since being in the planetarium and just happening to look it up and finding it. It was very interesting. So one of the programs that we have that we're still doing right now, which wraps up very soon, is Solar Saturdays. And that's where we get to use the Lunt telescope as well as the Bastani together, and we put the Herschel wedge inside the Bastani telescope, and we can have a dual view of the sun. And I cannot tell you how amazing it is just to spend time with individual families. And that's the difference really between a planetarium program and an observing program. Many of you that have observing programs know this, that you just get to focus on the individual and answer individual questions, speak with them for a little while. It's beyond compare when you get to see the light go on multiple times and you just get to spend time with them. So we get a really good view and a good chance to look. And we have had a wonderful season with the hydrogen alpha. It has given us so many prominences now. We've had like 3-4 mega prominences on Saturday alone, and it gets really exciting. So then, of course, I got to dig out the camera. So we got to try to plan time for that too, trying to get all that in place. So we're just happy to be there and happy to work, and do whatever we can to bring this attention in. And of course, you can see downtown Buffalo in the background there. But it doesn't matter whether it's cloudy or not. We have a program for that. That's our famous answer. We have a program for that. We do offer them binoculars up on the roof too. So we keep a set of 4 binoculars up there, and even if it's clear or not, they get a chance to take the binoculars and look around. And we have 3 basic rules that we tell them. 1, don't look at the sun. 2, please keep them around your neck, because if you see pictures, when you get to the roof, you'll see that there's drop-offs on the other side of the fence. We don't want to lose them. And 3, don't look at the sun. So we just make sure, especially where the kids are involved, we really want to make sure that that we get that across. So we want to be safe about it, and we want to be very informational about it too. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program, wonderful amount of time. And we can't wait to see you. Last time I checked International Clear Sky Chart, we're looking good for Saturday. So you've been in Buffalo now for a little bit. Welcome to what people normally call Buffalo weather. But wait till Friday. We're going to surprise you. You're going to get a big surprise. So again, my part is done here. I'm going to turn this over to Holly, but because myself and Steve Dubois back there, we've been around for a while. If we want real stories, what goes on around here, right, Steve? We know everything. So, all right, thank you for your time. Turn it to Holly.
I'm just going to tuck this in if that's all right. Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. How am I sounding? Okay? Wonderful. All right, thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, we're very excited about all of the stuff that's going on, just kind of a few minutes that way over at the Buffalo Museum of Science. My name is Holly Cohen. I am the Astronomy Program Coordinator, so I'm kind of part of the permanent education staff at the museum with a specialty in astronomy. And we've got more in store here. And of course, what Tim was referring to earlier with that really nice picture of the observatory lit up at night, this is what I kind of want to bring to you. Oh. Here we are. Okay, so this is a program that is very near and dear to my heart. I've been thinking about this program model for a couple of years now. We finally got to try it this past summer, and this is kind of our newest program. It's called Twilight at the Museum. Kind of in the past, before 2020, the options for getting up to the roof and using the Kellogg Observatory for nighttime observing, the process was a little bit clunky. Of course, we are not an amazing live astronomy city. It involved pre-registering, and it would fill up very quickly. People would have to spend extra money to come up and visit us. So Twilight at the Museum was designed to get the most people up on the roof, enjoying the telescopes, enjoying the observatory and the view of the city as possible, while eliminating the need for rushing everybody to kind of beat filling up any kind of registration or paying any extra money. So the Twilight events were kind of loosely themed around whatever was in the sky that night. We had 3 tests of this program, one Friday in July, one in August, and one in September. So of course, late July here in Buffalo, things aren't even, nothing is dark until about 10 p.m. We would have the observatory and the entire museum open from 8 to 11. So we actually just kind of pushed, oh, come and watch the sunset from the roof right over the Buffalo City skyline, and everybody really liked it. In kind of preparation for the weather to kind of wash out good skies and good seeing conditions, we would have the entire rest of the museum open, all 4 floors, so that I like to say nobody had any extra skin in the game. If you came and you wanted to kind of get some astronomy content, it would all still be there. It's a bummer if we couldn't go up to the roof, but we had all of our astronomy staff ready with equipment and all of the Buffalo Astronomical Association volunteers bringing their own telescopes too. Luckily, we were not rained out or anything. We had about 30 to 50% cloud cover for each of these nights, which was not ideal, but we had over 275 visitors every single time. A lot of them were repeat visitors, so they really enjoyed coming, and the sentiment was a really nice, positive one, and we got a lot of good feedback. So It's been really great to bring that to light. And then, of course, this is a planetarium conference. I will talk about our planetarium. So we have a 5-meter digital star lab. It's a portable. We purchased it in July of 2018. So we were able to kind of unveil this and use it for the first time alongside the reopening of our renovated observatory and roof deck. So it's been very nice. So we had it donated to us by Dr. Cora Musial. She's what we call a museum kid. She used to come to the museum growing up and taking advantage of all of the educational programs. And she dedicated the planetarium to Mr. Richard Zygmunt, her educator for a lot of those years, and a long-time museum astronomy and education staff member. So he's a really good guy, and so is Cora. So we started offering outreach in January of 2019 once we all kind of got reacquainted with our new dome. So we've been able to take the planetarium out on outreach on dozens and dozens of occasions. We've had over 3,000 visitors just via outreach alone, but we can also bring the planetarium out and kind of blow it up and inflate it and use it on site at the museum too. So the picture that you're seeing is the planetarium on our stage in our auditorium/movie theater area. You'll notice though that it's kind of a tight fit. This is the obstacle that I'm running into the most often, and I would love to hear if anybody else is encountering this at their museums. We don't have a dedicated home for the planetarium as it stands and as it is used. There are several different places on site that we can blow this up. It will have the right space footprint, or it will have the right amount of quiet so that ambient noise doesn't get in the way. Or in the case of our theater, it's kind of nice to get everybody sat down in that theater seating, introduce yourself, and tell them what they're going to do. No, this is not an igloo or a bounce house. No, you can keep your shoes on, all of that. But it does kind of get challenging because every area in the museum site kind of has a shortcoming with what I call like the 3 factors of the portable dome experience. One spot is noisy, one spot is a little bit unavailable most of the time. And then in the case of the auditorium, we kind of have that little ledge. It's only about 2 feet, but the only way to get up to that stage area is via stairs. So it's not the most accessible. But otherwise, we're having a really nice time with it. The staff at the museum especially love when I bring it out. They consider it a treat for themselves. Okay, and then just looking forward for astronomy programming at the museum, we have a lot on the horizon, so to speak. And of course, this is kind of a nice view of the city skyline at sunset over the roof deck. We are planning to expand the Twilight at the Museum events for the 2023 season, so I'm personally very excited about that. We're going to try to have more than 3 events. And then we are also offering individual ticketed planetarium shows that people will know about weeks or even months in advance so that they can prepare for it, and then that accessibility at the museum is not as much of an issue. So we're also trying to get some more education staff trained on the planetarium. I shared this sentiment a lot at GLPA yesterday, and a lot of others had this same thought. It's kind of difficult, takes a long time to train more staff, but the interest is there. So as the weather gets colder and we're stuffed back inside here in Buffalo, we're gonna dedicate some time to that. And then we also have other things. I'm always hoping to get new Buffalo Astronomical Association members to help us out with our programming because they were so valuable, especially this past summer. We often kind of hold events called Sci-Nights. They are 18+ events. I host one called Galaxy Painting. It's been very successful, and it's fun. It's kind of meditative. Great. And we're also looking forward to the 2024 Eclipse, as Tim mentioned. So we've got a lot to look forward to. It's very nice. And I want to thank you all for having us here, and I hope this was a nice introduction to your neighbors at the museum.
While we're getting set up for the next speaker, I do want to say if you have any questions for Tim or Holly, please seek them out. They'll be around and you can ask them directly, okay? you, because this is for the stream. And then I'll just hand this to you. And then when you clip it on, just make sure the microphone's facing upwards. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the next speaker, which is Renae Kerrigan from the Peoria Riverfront Museum.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give a beginning to my talk, quick shout out to our videography team because they're doing a bang up job, everybody. I'm Renae Kerrigan. I am the Planetarium Director and the Curator of Science at the Peoria Riverfront Museum in Peoria, Illinois. And, I think for those of you who I know, the most prominent part of my job that you would associate with me is the Planetarium Director. Of course, this is a planetarium conference. But in the past 3 years, I've also transitioned to being the Curator of Science at my museum, which means that I create astronomy-themed exhibits, not just astronomy-themed, science-themed exhibits for our galleries. And I also work with our natural history collection of minerals, fossils, and insects. And I created 3 astronomy-themed exhibits. These are self-curated exhibits that fill our galleries. And when I say self-curated, that means that we created the content, borrowed or acquired the objects, and created interactive elements of these exhibitions. And the topics were on the moon and just recently Mars. So we believe that interactive elements in exhibits are important for people of all ages. We are not a children's museum, we're a multidisciplinary museum and we teach art, science, and history. But people learn in different ways, so it's important to have different ways of interacting with the topics, even for adults. So interactivity can be beneficial. And if you don't have a museum gallery, I hope that some of these ideas may be useful even for a planetarium lobby or even a classroom teaching, because some of the ideas came from classroom lessons. So here's a picture, a little overview of the moon exhibition that we created in 2019. And then just at October 7th opened Mars. So this is myself in a portion of the Mars exhibit with the great Sheldon Schaefer, who I hope many of you remember and know. And his family helped bring the Luke Jerem Mars artwork that's in this gallery to the exhibit. So I've grouped together some of the interactive ideas that we created in sort of easy, very low effort, then medium effort, and then high level effort of creating these exhibits. So we'll start with the easy ones. We found that everyone likes to be able to provide some form of feedback, their own input into an exhibit. And this is a really simple thing to do. You can just ask a question and allow visitors to provide what they think. You can do this in a lot of different ways. You can have some sort of screen that people put their answers in on, or you could have comment cards that people fill out. But this is my favorite because it looks kind of nice and it's so simple. So I asked, what do you think would be different on Earth if we had no moon? And we just allowed our guests to write down an answer and put it right on the wall with a sticky Post-it note. It was very popular, it was very easy, it cost Post-it notes. So we did have to every once in a while remove some because maybe someone put something naughty on the wall, but that wasn't very often. Then dress up. Dress up is so simple and so fun. And it's also an important part of imaginative play for kids, creative thinking, and allowing young people to imagine themselves in a role. So there is actual real learning that happens with dress up. So in the moon exhibit, we had these cheap astronaut costumes. The plastic helmets weren't a problem for lice concerns. We had some Galileo scopes, so simple. And then young people love dressing up, and their grown-ups love taking their picture. In fact, I had some grown-up size astronaut outfits too, and some grown-ups got dressed up. So again, it would be good in the corner of a planetarium lobby just as well if you don't have a gallery space. All of our gallery spaces have a rest area or a reading area. So for Moon, we made it look like, you know, a 1960s living room, a little bit, as best we could. We have content for all ages in that reading area. So books that grown-ups could read to little people, as well as we had some Life magazines, like from the era of the moon landing. And so content for adults as well. And we had the moon footage showing in that old console TV. In the second version of Moon that we did in 2020, we just added a few more little toys. So we had actual models of like the Saturn V rocket and the lunar lander in the show, but then I just bought plastic versions of those things, smaller plastic versions of those things, and just had them out. And not only then does that allow for, again, imaginative play, so a child like blasting off to the moon with their rocket, but then you as a parent or as a facilitator can allow someone to handle that rocket and then talk about the stages of the Saturn V. My child, that's Stella, in the outfit there, that was like the favorite thing of the moon exhibit. She's like, Mommy, can we go back so I can play with that rocket again? Just a plastic rocket. And then there are also some moon phase blocks. So very simple, building blocks with moon phases on them. And finally, this can be done with literally any topic. Have a building toy area. So Lego bricks connects any other building toy. The challenge is then to make it fit your topic. So for Mars, you know, we have some examples of Martian habitat designs. So there's a lot of different ideas for how you could build a habitat on Mars. Then you have to try to explain in text, why would you need a habitat on Mars? There's radiation, there would be concerns with radiation. You don't have enough air to breathe in the atmosphere, a very cold temperature. So if you present those ideas, then you say, what type of habitat would you build on Mars? And then you have a simple interactive way for people to experience that content. Okay, so the next exhibit ideas we implemented, I would classify as medium level of effort, requiring more technology or just fussiness. So this is something I actually highly recommend for a planetarium lobby because almost all the work is done for you or an exhibit. NASA has solar system tracks. Has anybody explored these? There's a bunch of them. There's the moon, Mercury, icy worlds, Mars. That QR code at the bottom takes you to the NASA page with all these different solar system treks, or just Google NASA trek. And so the content's already created for you. It's like a kiosk, ready-made. But the trick is you don't want to just have a web browser open because then a visitor can go to anywhere on your computer. So this software, the KeyAware Lite software, is what we used to lock down the browser so that the guests couldn't navigate away from that screen. And then it just allows you to explore the surface of a world. And again, in this case, it was Mars, but there's a lot of different varieties, and it's the content's already created for you. There's informational content. You can zoom in on different landing sites. Really nice. Just need to lock down that browser. Then for the Mars exhibition, we wanted people to be able to experience driving robots. So again, here's some little Kerrigans. Those are my two daughters there. We wanted people to be able to experience driving robots because, of course, that's the way we've explored Mars. So it took carpentry skills. We have somebody who's good with wood at the museum and created this little robot maze. We already own the Dash robots, so that wasn't an additional cost to us at this time. And that's a type of robot that you can purchase. It's about $150. And then they are controlled by an app that you can have on a phone or a tablet. But to lock it down so that our visitors, again, wouldn't use the tablet for other purposes, it actually wasn't that difficult to do using multiple layers of parental control. So we just went down through the parental control on the tablets and made it so that the person could only tap on the one app. And they couldn't get to the browser or anything like that. So this has been open for a couple of weeks, and so far that's been just fine.
2 minutes till question time.
Okay. Oh, and that's like one of the most popular parts of the exhibit, for sure. being able to drive the robots. Because then you can say, you can't, having trouble getting through this maze, now imagine driving a robot on a world that's a million miles away, and you have to, you know, send up all your commands for a day for the robot to do. Okay, the last ones I have are all ones that I would definitely say took a lot more effort and time to sink into them, but were worthwhile. For the Mars exhibit, we used, again, NASA products that they've already created. They've already done the hard work, but if you want to display it in a museum, you have to do some work to make it look nice. So we use the screen and the bright sign, which is a product that you can buy and put on screens to control the content on them, and the bright author software to create zones on the screen. So the top zone is just a widget from NASA that's displaying the current temperature on Mars from the Curiosity rover. It's updated once a week. So that's really cool because it's right by a bunch of information about the weather, or about the atmosphere on Mars and the weather on Mars. And then the bottom half is a different zone that we created by downloading content from NASA's Sounds of Mars webpage. They've, again, already done the work. But we used a Nexmosphere sensor for the user to be able to navigate it. And this actually creates a magnetic field that you use gestures to control. So here's somebody swiping in front of it, and that causes the content on the screen to change. Now, honestly, the reason we did the swipe thing is my IT department was like excited about it and wanted to try it out. You could do the same thing by having a tap through. You could download the videos and have them on loop. And it's screens, I would say screens are like medium level interactivity anyway. They're not the ideal interaction that I'm really looking for, but it's kind of cool. I really wanted an augmented reality sandbox, so we got one of these for Mars. This is literally a sandbox with a projector projecting down onto it. And here's another Kerrigan, that's Stella. When you change the sand shape, the projector changes the elevation lines on it. You can build your own, so that top QR code gives you a link to a tutorial for how to build your own. And it would require quite a bit of technology and quite a bit of learning how to do it. You can also purchase one, which is what we did for this exhibit. There's a lot of different places to purchase one, but I bought it from the one I've linked here, which was like a fab lab in California that I bought it from. It's been super popular. Last one is we built a simulator for a moon exhibit. And this one, using my friend Steve Berkland's advice, he had helped build something like this for the Adler, and sent me some pictures and some of the hardware. And then I worked with an artist, a local artist who builds things, sent him pictures and ideas, and he bought the switches and the knobs and the LEDs and such, and he built this. The top screen shows a video from the cockpit of the limb of landing on the moon. And then the rest of it is literally those knobs don't do anything. Kids don't care. They get to manipulate something physically and imagine themselves landing on the moon. And that's pretty awesome. I think I am,
1 minute.
I have 1 minute for questions. So I hope this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The question was if we have a problem with tethering the tablets, like physically tethering them tablets for the robots. And I plan ahead like months in advance, and I'm like, this is what we need to do. Please, who will help me with this? This is my personality, so I'm the conference planning chair. I told them, I was like, so someone's going to acquire the tethers, right? And they, oh, yeah, we got this. And they never did. So right now, they're literally just there, and I'm like, oh, I hope no one walks off with these guys. Nobody has yet. You can buy a tether. We just haven't done it yet. Thank you so much.
hold the pack, and then I'll just hand you the mic. Okay. All right, everybody. So our next talk and last talk before lunch is from Aubrie Vivant, right? Aubrie Vivant and Dr. Sarah Schultz from the University of Minnesota Moorhead Planetarium.
All right, hello, I'm Aubrie Vivant.
And I'm Sarah Schultz.
And we are here to talk to you sort of about our 50th anniversary and what we've been doing to celebrate that at our planetarium. So I have been working for 3 years now at the planetarium as a video producer. I'm actually a film student, and Sarah has so kindly given me a great place to work. Is there anything else? Okay. So 50 years, yay! That's exciting for us, but why should you care? So as we know, after the moon landing, after the space race, there was a lot of funding to start funding planetariums, other space education endeavors. So as math would have it, you probably, maybe, will be celebrating your anniversary soon, or a different anniversary. So this is kind of just telling you guys what we've been up to and giving you ideas, giving you maybe some things to consider in your preparations. So our celebration actually started in July, and it will end in about a week now. Will be our last thing. We have an open house with people coming that were there when the planetarium started up until now. So that will be exciting. Our first event that Sarah's going to talk about is the James Webb Space Telescope First Images event.
So we applied to be an official NASA site for the James Webb Space Telescope First Images. And actually we were also one for the launch. And so we decided that, well, some advice that I had gotten was, decide what events you want to have that will be kind of your milestone events leading up to your big celebration. And so we figured, well, what better event to choose than the first images coming from the James Webb. And so we started that off, and we planned it so that it was 100 days before our final event. And so we were framing everything, we'll talk about this in a few minutes too, as we framed everything in kind of 50s since it was our 50th anniversary. So we had some telescopes set up, we did some kind of public lecture type stuff in the planetarium, and we had a bunch of activities as well based around light waves and different ways that we're looking at things in space.
All right. And then our second event that we used as one of our milestones was our first monthly sky tour, which we call What's Up. And we've actually recently been partnering with a local DJ to do some live music during our sky tours. So we actually sold out our first few shows of the year, which was great. And then the project that I've mainly been working on is these 50th anniversary video interviews. So since June, I've been interviewing people from all the way when the planetarium started in '72 up until now, and I've done about 18 of them. We actually just posted our final episode last week up on our YouTube channel of sort of the compiled videos of all these interviews. So it's been a very interesting experience, lots of work, but it was very interesting to see just how much our space has shifted and grown since it first opened. And it was great to be able to talk to the people who sort of started it all. Sort of in that time also, I got to thinking a lot about not only how much had changed in our space, but how much had changed in the world of astronomy since the space opened. So we had the idea to do 50 Years of Discoveries as our 50th anniversary celebration show, sort of looking at all the major events since 1972 until now. So Apollo 17, the Blue Marble, Voyager 1 and 2, Hubble, etc. So that will be presented at our open house, not in 2 Saturdays or so, at some point. Yeah.
A week from Saturday.
Yeah, a week from Saturday. And then another big important piece of our 50th anniversary has been our fundraising. We're in the works of getting a laser system permanently that is ours, not one that we have to borrow. So again, going off that 50 number, our goal has actually been, I don't know why my slide says $60,000, $50,000 to get that new laser system. So we've been doing that through our upcoming Giving Day that is an annual thing at our school, as well as merch. We've done raffles. I was going to say, you want to show the cool merch? We have sweatshirts, we have stickers, keychains. We've got T-shirts. We have some graphic designers on our staff. Yeah, the stickers are great. Anything else you want to talk about for that?
Probably I'll just talk about it in the other part. All right. So this was a very new endeavor for me. I am a physicist. I am not an event planner. And I'm sure that many of you can relate to that. So this is definitely not my training. And so becoming a marketer and a fundraiser and an event planner and all those things on top of my normal job was tremendously difficult. And so I did reach out to some colleagues and ask for some advice, and so I wanted to share some of that advice with you. One of the big things was to decide what you want your milestone events to be. Don't overstretch yourself, because you can only do what you can do, right? You don't want to reach too far and then burn yourself out and do it poorly. And I shouldn't quote this, but one of my students just gave me a sticker the other day. It said, "Don't half-ass anything, whole-ass one thing." So I didn't want to half-ass it. I wanted to whole-ass it. So, and so anyway, I wanted to do it right. And so I didn't want to have a million things happening all at the same time and just overstretch. And so I chose things that kind of fit into what we were already doing and kind of just reframed it in terms of the 50th anniversary, and then chose a few special events to really to focus on. Start early. I wasn't entirely sure when the planetarium was built, and so I figured out that it was this year. So I started kind of in April, and I decided that the giving day would be a good cutoff time because I didn't really have an actual date to go with. And so definitely I have been working my butt off since April. And if you have more time, then you can kind of take it in steps. But at the same time, for me, I'm kind of glad it was a shortened time frame because I'm tired and I'm ready for it to be done. And again, I said, don't overreach. Do what you can do and do it well. It doesn't have to look like anything else. It's your event. It's your special thing. Just make it yours. And the theming was really good, just kind of thinking about things, phrasing everything in terms of 50s. If you're having a 25th anniversary, frame everything in 25s, and give people something to kind of hold on to in terms of that. I have other things that I can't think of right now, but if you have questions or want some more advice, I have learned some things along the way, particularly in the fundraising area. I am not a fundraiser, but I did talk to a fundraiser, and he told me that it's not rocket science. And I'm like, well, I can do that, so I must be able to do this. So it's really a learning process, and the reason we're doing this is so that we can be a resource to anyone else who's looking at doing something similar, because I have learned a lot, and Aubrie has been amazing, and we're really looking forward to the event. It's just, it is a lot more than our normal jobs. So, all right, what else did you want to say?
Yeah, sort of just to wrap things up, I think that celebrating our anniversary has been a very busy but a time that is going to be very essential in the development of our planetarium. Obviously, everyone's still coming back from COVID. Events are sort of difficult to get attendance to, but we are steadily growing much more over just the years that I've been there. Anniversaries, to some degree, can sometimes seem not super important, but I think it sort of celebrates the fact that we are still here, we're still standing. And it's sort of that idea that what started this planetarium, or all planetariums really, what started our planetarium 50 years ago was sort of that desire to see more, and that's what's going to keep us going. So that's all I got.
All right.
And there's our contacts.
Yes, and I don't know how much time we have.
I don't either. I feel like we went pretty fast. Oh, okay. Well, we have time for questions.
We have 5 minutes.
Try to get you guys out early for lunch, I guess.
Jean.
I'm thinking is the microphone not coming? No.
We'll just rephrase it. We'll restate it.
So my question is, given what you know, what would you advise us for the 100th anniversary of all planetariums?
Raise $100 million.
Raise lots of money. No.
Oh,
So knowing what we know now, what would you advise for the 100th anniversary of all planetariums? Start early. That's a big one. And make it manageable for you. So if you want to celebrate that in your own way, then do that. And if you can take advantage of other materials or other things, like Renae was talking about, taking advantage of the stuff from NASA, then certainly, take advantage of those things as well. But I mean, if it's the 100th anniversary for all planetariums, then we can work together and we can make it easier, right? So talk to your colleagues. We are our best help, right? We're all in it together, and we can help each other. So, no other questions? Nobody wants to know how to get a sweet sweatshirt or t-shirt or stickers? I mean, my email's right here, so just let me know. I'll send them out to you. All right, thank you.
All right, everyone. So that does conclude the second paper session. Thank you all very much. The next thing on the schedule is going to be lunch, which is just across the hall in the sponsor hall. So thanks for joining us. I don't know which one of these is the power button.